Councilmember Stephanie Gomes. Councilmember Stephanie Gomes. And Robert McConnell will be sharing some thoughts that he has in this event. And J.D. Miller, of course, probably needs no introduction, but he's going to be giving us some insight into this too. So I'm going to turn this over to the panel, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me in the back? Thank you. Okay, thank you all for coming tonight, especially in such rotten weather. Really appreciate your being here and the fact that you care enough about our community to participate in this. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to bring you information regarding bankruptcy. We're not going to tell you whether it's the right or the wrong thing to do for Vallejo, but we felt that the public should know what bankruptcy is, what the ramifications are, before the council votes on this next Tuesday, the 26th. The current plan was to have all of this presented to you the night the council votes. As you will find out during the course of the evening, that's an awful lot to assimilate immediately prior to a vote and would not give you an opportunity to formulate your thoughts and your questions and present them. So, we will have presentations from the three people sitting here at the table, and please hold your questions until all the presentations are finished. And then please, if you don't have a voice that carries well, come up to the front and use a microphone so everyone can hear your question. We will be finished by 9 o'clock. Let me rephrase that. We will be done by 9 o'clock, whether we're finished or not. If there are a lot of questions that are not answered, or we have people that were not able to get in, this meeting will be continued Monday, the 25th, at the Joseph Room at the library. So hopefully everyone will get their questions answered in time. Before we go any further, I want to take just a moment to thank someone from the community who's contributed a great deal over the years and tonight gave up a party for his 80th birthday to be here. Bill Moore. Okay, Ms. Gomes.
I think I'm going to hold this because that doesn't come up very much. Good evening. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. There's been a lot of talk as to why Councilmember Shively and I are doing this meeting here in a photography studio and not down at City Hall. And the response would be is that we've been asking for a public meeting to discuss bankruptcy since December, and we haven't been given permission to do so. Councilmember Shively and I asked last week at the public meeting to have a public meeting at the City Council on bankruptcy. And again, we asked to have it agendized. It was put on the agenda and then pulled off late Friday afternoon. So that's why we're doing this here. We decided that this is too important of a matter, as Councilmember Shively said, way too important to digest and discuss on the night that the council's going to vote. Why are we here tonight? Because the city is facing a very severe deficit. Many of you have been involved in Vallejo for a long time. You know we've been facing this for a long time, but this is different. We are on the brink of bankruptcy. And the council was told this a couple of weeks ago, that if the city doesn't do something by mid-April, we won't be able to pay employee salaries. That's why it's important. So in my mind, if you'll just bear with me one moment, because public process is really important to me. And really, taxpayers and politicians have this social contract. And that contract says that basically this is a partnership. that we are acting in the public's best interest, but in return, you have a right to know what we're doing. And in my mind, in this city, there have been way too much processes done behind closed doors. And negotiations that have been conducted that have been cloaked in secrecy and handshakes made, and it's time that it stopped. And in my mind, we know right now that there are negotiations ongoing, and we can't talk about that tonight. And I'm sorry that there are going to be some questions we're not going to be able to answer simply because we're not allowed to. But just know that it's happening, and there will be hopefully more information about that on Tuesday. It said that transparency is the antidote for secrecy, and that's what we're doing tonight. We're just providing some transparency. We can't answer all the questions, and we can't provide you with a panacea, something that makes you walk out of here and feel good, like, okay, we're going to be okay, because we don't know that. Eventually, we will. Ultimately, will, because we know Vallejo is great. And I'm going to close my little soapbox with a quote from Edward R. Murrow, who said, "We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty." And that's very, very important, because Councilmember Shively and I may be seen as dissenters, but it doesn't mean we're disloyal, and it doesn't mean we don't love Vallejo, and it doesn't mean that we don't want to solve the problems. And I'll end with that.
Well, our loyalty is to the citizens of Vallejo, not to any special interest group. And I'm sure you've all heard that before. Just want to give you a couple of figures so you know what we're talking about when we say bankrupt. The city has about $4 million left over, so to speak, from last fiscal year. Now that sounds pretty good until you realize that there is an operating deficit of $10 million. That means this fiscal year, the city is going to spend $10 million more than it takes in revenue. So that means we have a cash shortage of 6 million, excuse me. If I said 1,000 before, I apologize. It was, those figures have been bandied about, and they've confused people considerably because they're hearing there's a budget shortfall of 6 million. No, it's 10. Well, what happened to the 4 we had last year? Well, it's been used up. And if we don't get control of this problem, in addition to the 10 million more that we need this year, we will need 13 million more next year. And in the next 4 years, that will escalate to $87.5 million. That amount is pretty much the general fund budget for 1 year. So how are we going to catch up for a whole year? Good question. Councilmember Gomes mentioned that there are things that we are not able to talk about tonight because they were in closed session. But just before I came here, my packet was delivered from City Hall, and tomorrow on the web, on the internet, you may have a hint of what to expect Tuesday night, because under administrative items, and there's no staff report with this, it says, action item related to general fund budget, staff report to be distributed 2/22/08. And immediately under that is a little telltale comment, which is the next item. Action item related to settlement of labor grievances. Staff report to be distributed February 22nd, 08. And without relating too much, keep in mind that what I've just said may turn out to be a price tag for something. Okay, Robert McConnell, who has graciously offered to share his knowledge